like, bro, yeah, she got a kid. Look at his back. Oh my god. What's up, bro? Welcome back to another reaction. Today from reacting to animals that got the middle finger from evolution. Yes, hood nature, man. It's been a little while since reacting to you, my guy.
The middle finger.
Yeah, there's a lot of animals that's just weird. Like, I remember I know there's like this,
like that wasn't like made right.
Not
like made right. That in a bowl.
It's just like the way they, like, there's this pig or hog, I guess. I don't know where it is. I think it's somewhere in Asia, but like their antlers like grow into their heads.
Pig.
Or no, it's not their antlers. It's not their antlers. It's like their tusk from their mouth grows into.
Oh, you're talking about a boar.
Yeah, like boar, boar, hog, whatever the fuck you call him. Fucking tusk, it grows out of his mouth and into his like his forehead and shit. Then you get like fucking like moles.
Oh man,
like they're fucking. I think they got like 5-pronged penises and shit. Like they got like 5 like different tips on their penises and shit. This is weird. I don't know. It's just weird.
What? Yeah, but I don't know, man. Get them out.
Yeah, man. If you're enjoying the Hood Nature reactions, let us know down in the comments. You want to see more? Hit that like button, subscribe, and share. We're so close to 3,000, man. We only started a year ago, man. Look how far we came. We appreciate all the support. We're going to hard right into the video.
That's it. That's the whole intro. Don't get me wrong, the concept of evolution is pretty cool. It's the reason giraffes get to flex their high in the entire animal kingdom. But there are just times where nature and evolution decide to team up and absolutely hoe an animal's entire existence. So here are 10 animals that I personally think I've done the dirtiest. It's not exactly in order, but obviously some animals are going to get violated more flagrantly than others. And I say that because if this list were actually in order, the octopus would probably medal at the Oppression Olympics for... Well, let me explain. Octopus are highly intelligent, and scientists believe they have the same cognitive ability as a 2-year-old human. Which might not seem impressive, but that means octopus are on the same IQ level as some dogs. They're even smart enough to use tools, whether it's using the tentacles of the venomous man-o-war as a weapon, which they actually do, or carrying a coconut around to keep as a travel-sized panic room. But being smart is the only thing they have going for them. First of all, most octopus come into the world as orphans. The mother octopus will spend months guarding and washing her nursery of up to 50,000 eggs. Since it's too dangerous to leave them alone, since there's no daycare underwater, she often won't eat the entire time. Which means once the clutch of eggs are finally ready to hatch, the mother is shriveling, starving, and ready to become initials on a Twitter bio. Struggle doesn't end there. In fact, that's when it starts. These babies the size of a grain of rice have to figure out life in an ocean full of animals that'll actually try to put an end to it. It's so bad that out of the 50,000 children, if more than 2 survive to adulthood, it's considered overachieving. That honestly wouldn't be a big deal if nature didn't already nerf them with their lifespan. It's so ridiculous that the majority of octopus species that live life to the fullest still won't be alive for their first birthday. Being an octopus means you can be born on New Year's, have a midlife crisis by June, only to be a memory by October. Giving an animal high intelligence just to cut its life after 1 to 2 years just seems like an intentional.
My favorite sea animal right there, man.
And because they have no shell or no armor, they'd honestly be lucky to live that long. Having no real way to defend themselves means a good number of them end up a sea lion's chew toy or a dolphin's frisbee. To be fair, octopus do have camouflage. In some cases, highly toxic venom. But for the most part, they get bodied by most of the ocean. And to add insult to injury, every octopus you see is probably a virgin because once they get laid, they die. You already saw what happens to the mother, but where did daddy at? Once the male octopus mates, he basically just gives up on life. The male octopus that's catched in his V-card will swim around catatonically until he either gets torn apart by predators or dies of starvation as his body falls apart due to senescence. Not like it really matters because most female octopus are bigger than the males and sometimes they'll attack and cannibalize him during. But one thing's for sure, if his date doesn't put him out of commission, his post-nut clarity will. Octopus don't live long, but for the months they're alive, their entire existence is a jihad. Now you know why Squidward wouldn't give up if a paid him. But at least with the octopus, it just seems to be really bad luck. They may be a victim of circumstance, but at least you get the idea that nature didn't go out of its way to screw them. Not like with this bird. Kiwi bird is probably the best proof that evolution ain't perfect. This tiny bird is actually part of the rat-type family. And this cookout includes ostriches, emus, cassowaries, and the rhea. But unlike his bigger cousins, this bird that shares its name with a fruit is about 18 inches tall and no more than 7 pounds. It's kind of like having cousins 6'3", 6'4", and 6'6", yet you came out looking like Tory Lanez. Like your family's tall enough to fit it in an NBA locker room, yet you get it from a chair and stay the same height. But of course, nature wasn't done screwing with this bird because like its relatives, they can't fly. Totally flightless, and despite being related to ostriches, a Jurassic reject, and a bird that literally won a war against Australia, kiwi's about as defenseless as the fruit that got named after it. Basically, you're looking at a bird that can't bird. The kiwi is such light work that they can only survive on islands without any mammalian predators because they're really a couple stray cats away from being put in the history books. And somehow,
Look useless. Look at him.
because nature shrunk everything about this bird.
Where's his arms?
Everything except the eggs they have to push out of their body. Despite being about 60 times smaller, kiwis have to deal with eggs nearly the same size as ostriches. And at 20% of its body weight, that would be like the average woman birthing a 35-pound baby with the same equipment. It's such a hell to live that the egg actually rearranges the bird's organs and stretches its rib cage. There's too many things wrong with them for me not to think nature had serious beef with this bird, especially when you realize the kiwi's closest ancestor was the elephant bird, which was about 10 feet, 1,600 pounds. So yeah, they got nerfed bad. At least they didn't get hit as hard as, say, the sloth. For being completely honest here, the sloth has almost nothing going for it. Because they insisted on eating nothing but leaves, their diet makes them one of the slowest animals on the planet. Because they physically can't afford to spend energy they don't have, because going into debt would mean death. It's to the point where baby sloths have to quite literally hold on for dear life, because if it falls to the jungle floor, the mother likely won't waste the energy trying to get it back. And that's because if you're a sloth, leaving this tree is the most dangerous thing you'll ever do. Sloths only poop about once a week, and when they do, they'll climb out of the tree and get on the ground to do it. Why they don't just drop a deuce from the trees, I couldn't tell you. Nobody knows what goes on in their heads.
Yeah,
but this means about half of all sloth deaths involve getting clapped on the toilet like Elvis. One thing sloths have going for them is that they're so mind-numbingly slow that algae actually grows on them, giving them free camouflage. But there's a catch. There is always a catch. When one of your biggest ops is an eagle with quite literally some of the best eyes in the world, wearing a moss blanket isn't going to amount to too much. And you know evolution was actively working with them because sloths are actually really good swimmers and can hold their breath for 40 minutes longer than dolphins and seals. But it means almost nothing when most of the time they go swimming is by accident when they fall out of a tree. And that weak-ass doggy paddle might save them from drowning, but it won't save them from getting murked by an anaconda or a black caiman. But the really sad part is, sloths could actually be way better than this. Its close relatives, the armadillo and anteater, are able to put the same claws that it has to good use, and anteaters are known to swing on jaguars. You have a homicidal vacuum cleaner that has put jaguars and people in coffins. And then you have a moss blanket with a face. Just like the kiwi, the sloth used to be better than this. Megatherium, aka the giant ground sloth, was in the same weight class as elephants, and they actually knew how to use those claws. So much so that if Ice Age were realistic, Sid would have worn Diego's ass like a fur coat. But its massive size ended up screwing it in the end, as they basically got hunted into oblivion by humans, leaving us now with the virtually defenseless, dead-eyed, slower than molasses algae apartment that we call the sloth. You know that thing on TV where it's like someone gets a genie that grants wishes, but only does so in a way that horribly bends them over in the end, and the moral's supposed to be careful what you wish for? That basically sums up this next animal, because it looks like it got finessed by a genie in one of the most disrespectful ways possible. This is a fiddler crab. Male fiddlers have one giant brolic claw whose only purpose is to get a female's attention. Any crabs choose their mate based on who has the biggest claw and therefore can pass the best genes to her clutch of eggs. The problem is, that is literally the only thing this claw is good for. Because that claw is too big to pick up food, the male fiddler crab can only feed himself with that smaller claw. That massive claw is actually a disability that means the males either eat half the food or take twice as long as the females. The only problem with that is that these crabs only eat during low tide, and the longer the crab spends eating, the more likely they are to end up as someone else's main dish. In the evolutionary arms race for female validation, the male fiddler crab is more likely to end up getting eaten by gulls, raccoons, reptiles, and sometimes even bigger crabs. And since the females enable this by being attracted to the bigger...
I think in one video, the dude was talking about, like, you get trapped on the island with these crabs that are, like, attracted to the smell of blood. These giant, like, coconut crabs. You ever seen a coconut crab that climb the trees and they crack coconut with their fucking... What happened? Probably a fucking fly.
What the fuck that shit was? It was crawling.
Yeah, probably a fly.
But what's it called? That's just weird. Is that real?
Wow, you'd be surprised, but shit's real. Fucking shooting harpoons and shit out of this fucking ridiculous, bro.
That's
like
crazy.
in nature.
The blood.
Fucking Charles Darwin talking about survival of the fittest. It's just random.
Over the fucking cousins.
It just depends on what works or what seems to work or what. It really just luck, really. It just seems to be luck. We got lucky. I'm telling you, we've been lucky for the past 100,000 years. We haven't really experienced much of.
We got this stuff. We got technology. They don't have
fucking
shit.
meteor come right out of the sky. Actually, fucking meteor. Fucking volcano right in the middle of the United States. That bitch blows up. It's over. Yellowstone.
As functional claws, the fiddler is now trapped in a vicious cycle. By preferring males with a trait that quite literally gets them put on a shirt, the females indirectly screw the next generation. Gotta be careful what you wish for, especially if you're this next animal. Because the peacock has the same problem on steroids. We can all agree that the peacock is the biggest flexor in the animal kingdom, and rightfully so. And just like with the crab and basically every other aspect of life, bigger is most certainly better. The more colorful and eye-catching, the better the peacock's chances at bagging a pea head. They'll even shimmy their tail feathers in a way that hypnotizes any female watching. But like I said, never make a deal with a genie. Because the good news is a peacock showing off will always be the center of attention. Bad news is sometimes that attention comes from a 700-pound assault weapon with stripes. And because those tail feathers are so heavy, not only can't the peacock see behind itself, even if it does see death coming, it takes that long to get off the ground and out of the tiger's reach. Just like with the crab, the peacock's biggest flex is often what gets it buried. In a cruel twist from fate, the peacocks that are safer from tigers are usually the ones that get less attention from females. So by having a preference, the peahens doom their future children to a fate of ultimately ending up as a tiger's toothpick. The peacock and Fiddler both got handed massive L's from nature, but at least you can see the thought process behind it. Having huge claws and fancy feathers attracts females, so technically it does serve a purpose. In comparison, the Luna moth got shafted for no reason at all. To make a long story short, adult Luna moths don't have a mouth and therefore can't eat. The only thing keeping them alive is the energy they store as caterpillars, but once that runs out, so does their time. Luna moths live for about a week, just long enough to reproduce and doom their children to the same fate of a non-consensual.
That's all life is.
If you ask Google why the Luna moth doesn't have a mouth, it'll tell you because its only purpose is to mate. Which is really nature not giving a fraction of a about them. Yeah, that's cruel. Question is, what could possibly be crueler? Well, if you know what this is, you probably have the answer. This is a sea louse. It's a member of the Caligulae family of copepods, which is basically just a bunch of small crustaceans. And you probably noticed that for the peacocks and the crabs, it was the guys getting the worst of it. Apparently nature believes in a weird form of equality because right now it's up for the girls. The horror show starts when a male sea louse kidnaps a much smaller female and then forcibly drags her into what I can only describe as a crustacean sex dungeon, where he can have up to 20 other victims also trapped. It's at this moment where this movie loses its rating because the male will forcibly impregnate every last female in his burrow, and this often involves penetrating her abdomen. Don't worry, it gets worse. As her brood of children that she never asked for begin to grow, they decide to start eating their way out. Eventually, the mother's body splits open as her nursery of psychopaths rush out of her now mutilated husk of a corpse. This might be one of the only times where the babies abort the mother. She doesn't even really get to give birth, her children just bring her death. You might be wondering why evolution would even give this nonsense the green light. Well, the newborn sea louse are entering an ocean full of danger, and having a full meal before they make it out on their own apparently increases their chance of survival. And by cannibalizing their own mother, it's basically a home-cooked meal.
See, that's what I don't know, man. We somehow get the lucky hand and the evolutionary stick, you know. Apparently we evolved from shrews or small mammals, and now we're fully grown talking apes. Apparently. And now people believe that there's Sasquatches in the woods that's even smarter than us watching. Sticking around, I don't know.
I don't know if they're that smart, I would be in the woods.
I think they understand. Sasquatches is real. I'm pretty sure they understand. Look, I don't know, man. That's just shit. I just know. I feel like people need to get in tune with nature a lot more than what they are now. Because I feel like a lot of the way things are now is not going to be the same. Like, you better learn how to survive, man. Serious, bro. Because when the time comes and you fucking out looking at plants and shit, like, you eat that? It's like, I don't know. He eat it, now he's dead. He's like, well, we can't eat that. It's like,
Alright, on to the next.
But yeah, if you want to see more hood nature, let us know down in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. It's the road to 3K. Alright, it's the road to 10K subscribers. But yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll be. Peace.
Peace.